Hello, everybody. So today is Sunday, June 9th, and we are bringing you a special edition of Block Digest with guest Raw Avocado, a local trader on local Bitcoins. And we're going to go over some of the recent changes at local Bitcoins and some of the just overall dynamics with the cash market for Bitcoin. So you want to say hi to everybody, Raw?
Hey, hello guys. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm a longtime fan of the show. I watch it every morning when I cook my breakfast, so it's really cool to be here.
Wow, really? You cook your own breakfast? That's a shock. So what's
We can have a separate show about how I cook my breakfast and the dynamics that go into play there. But yeah.
well, Rick, how are you doing today, man? Uh-oh, little sound glitch.
No, not a sound glitch. It's there's too many mute buttons. I'm always muting this button. I got that up button on mute. So, yeah, we're good to go now. It is Sunday. We got raw avocado in the house, which makes it feel a little bit more like a normal day in the mumble. So, yeah, it's good to have you here with us, Raw, and we can really dig into like what has been happening in local bitcoins and how are we gonna remedy this situation. But yeah, how's it going with you guys, Janine?
Well, I thought that I would use a different browser today, and I didn't because it turns out that Google Hangouts does not like you to use anything except Google stuff. But I've been working on writing a book today.
Whee! Spoilers. Give us spoilers.
No.
I demand spoilers.
It has Bitcoin in it.
That's not a spoiler.
The butler did it.
Yeah, that's it. The butler did it with the candlestick.
Yes.
So what's up with you, Nopara? How's the new life treating you?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm a bit allergic, but anyway, I'm really excited about this episode now because localbitcoin was one of the mystery companies for me for a very long time. You know, it's one of the company that I don't know anything about, that who's doing what when. They don't go to conferences, they don't do anything, but yet they have a lot of users, and they are kind of a gatekeeper in the, well, they were a gatekeeper in the peer-to-peer Bitcoin exchange. So yeah, we'll see what Raw has to say to us. How about you?
Yeah, it's always been part of the going, just like the meetup local scene. There's like some local Bitcoiners that show up, and that's about as far as like discussing things with Raw and the Mumble, and really just digging into the news and stuff. But local Bitcoins was kind of foreign to me too. But you guys really, like, that's how y'all came into Bitcoin, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So I guess I don't really know. It's I think a good place as any to start. You want to kind of break us down, Raw, like how local Bitcoins like started off as a company, I guess.
Sure. I don't know if it has any relevance. Maybe I should talk a bit about my background, I guess. Well, I'm a local Bitcoins trader for quite a long time now. I've been on and off it, and I've paid a lot of, like, ever since I've got into Bitcoin from the first day. I've been paying a lot of attention to local Bitcoins, right? So I could say I'm more than aware of what's happening there with all the payment methods and whatever. Yeah, actually on this show I do have a few talking points that I would like us to go over. I would want to start a bit with a bit of a history lesson. What was before local Bitcoins, and how did they start, and what problems they wanted to solve. I also want to talk about what value their service adds, right? Because it's fairly important to identify that. Then also, I think we should spend a bit of time talking about the asymmetry between fiat and Bitcoin. Then also, there are like two main categories on local Bitcoin. There's the online payments and the cash payments, and they're very different risk models here, and we're also going to go into that. Then I also want to emphasize a lot on this, the incentive model they have there, right? The feedback system and whatever, and why that's broken and why that will never work for cash, as far as I can understand. And then I also want to make a small observation regarding the market dynamics there, because there's also different type of asymmetry between buying and selling. One of them is more expensive, and I think that has to do with some interesting, efficient market dynamics um, regarding that. The problems with the alternatives, and a bit of nostalgic aftermath, because as Napar noted, like local Bitcoin is like, I think has practical and cultural um, importance in this space. So I guess what was before local Bitcoins, right? Local Bitcoin started in December, not December, I think it was around July or something, 2012. And before that, people were using Bitcoin OTC, which what was that for the people who don't know? It was an IRC channel, and it had this web of trusting, and people were just trading. What is this web of trusting, you ask? It's pretty much, it's also a feedback system that people could use. Let's say I would trade with you and I would give you some form of feedback there and a rating, um, that was also a number. And if I would want to like trade with let's say with Rick, I could look at this web of trust, ask and see what's my link between me and Rick. And if it's between someone I know, that's perfectly fine. There were also some interesting things developing on Bitcoin OTC there. The thing is that they would use this for all kind of trading, not necessarily just Bitcoin to old value. And there were some people who started like getting a bit more reputation. They started offering escrow services, right? They were leveraging their reputation. Um, but most of the people that were trading cash were face to face. They would not use any escrow, because that's my whole point. It doesn't make any sense. The escrow adds zero value. Well, zero, very little value anyway. And what would happen there? There was this interesting dynamic of me go second, right? What does this mean? So let's say I meet with Shinobi, right? And we're gonna like trade some Bitcoins right now. Well, because Shinobi is better known than me and everyone knows him because he talks on Twitter all the time. It only makes sense I would go first, because there's less of a chance of me trying to screw him over. And you could also see this if you go bitcoin-otc.com. You could go there and you can click on the web of trust, and you can see how people used to comment and leave feedback for each other. And you could see there would be comments like that. I went first, or he went second, or whatever. So that's how people used to do it before local Bitcoins, right? And as far as, well, I wasn't around when people were really using that a lot, so I wouldn't really know if there were a lot of incidents. And as far as I looked on Bitcoin Talk and whatever, there weren't that many. Also, like, I guess kind of everyone kind of knew each other back then, so I don't know if that's really relevant. But anyway, so the local Bitcoin comes about, right? The Congas brothers, I think that's how you pronounce their name. They made this post and on local Bitcoin. I think that would be interesting to link. It's really interesting to look for that post and then see how everything developed there. Maybe we should add it in the show notes later. Anyway, they advertised they have this new website that should allow people to buy and sell Bitcoins for cash. And people got excited about it. And just fast forward a few years, they ended up adding more payment methods. And that's how we managed to have the local Bitcoin we have today. And I think they articulated this pretty well in that post there. But I'll try to do it myself. What was the whole point of local Bitcoin? I was like, why would you do this? Well, people want to exchange old value into new value, or vice versa. New value, of course, being Bitcoin. And they decided that they should have a place where you have a reputation system, as in, like, I traded with you, after I traded with you, I can leave you some form of feedback or say something about you, similar to the web of trust model. They would also have an escrow service, right, which is different from the web of trust model, because there was no central entity providing this escrow. But here on a local Bitcoins model, they are the central entity which you have to trust, and they will be the escrow, right? And well, I guess they also offered another value they added. They were like the place for this, just being labeled as that. People started going there, I guess. And it was also it was way more user friendly, because I didn't mention this, but on Bitcoin OTC, in order to rate people and whatever, you would have to you would have to know how to use GPG, and in order to do that, you would have to like register there with your key, get your key on a key server. Then the way you would log in, they would send you a message you would have to sign. So it gets a bit weird. You could also use a Bitcoin address for that. So So that was pretty cool. But sorry about that. I just got distracted. I got a notification on Telegram.
No,
Um,
that's all right.
yeah. So local Bitcoin was pretty much more user friendly, right? And that's why it made more sense. I guess that goes for the history lesson. Yeah.
Okay, so pretty much the big value add that local Bitcoins really brought to the table versus Bitcoin OTC was just like that central reputation for the escrow and then the usability. And like aside from that, it was pretty much just the exact same as OTC, right?
It was, but again, and I'm also gonna make the point as we advance that actually this escrow thing sounds like a good idea, right? It sounds like a good idea, but for cash, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, you want to kind of, or sorry, Rick.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, it doesn't make sense to have an escrow if you're just gonna go up and trade Bitcoin for cash.
Well, you kind of want to go into why you think it doesn't make sense because I don't know if you really want
Sure.
to talk about this specifically, but I know you have some personal experience with that system in a worst case.
Sure, of course I do that, and again, that's out there. That's I talked about it on the Bitcoin Uncensored podcast, which I was officially the last person on the show before they broke up, and that meant a lot to me because I'm such a fanboy of the show, and that pretty much influenced the way I view Bitcoin and everything. So we can get into that, but before that, I think we should clarify a few more things. And then after I clarify these, I think we can talk about a worst case scenario. And when you are in the worst case scenario, why that has literally no benefit. I always like to share links with people from Bitcoin Talk. I like to dig there. It's kind of funny when you look there. And another thing I would like to bring up is there was this exchange. I think it was called CoinPal, if I remember correctly. And this exchange shut down in 2011. It was pretty much an exchange where people could buy and sell bitcoins for PayPal, or I think it was only buy. I'm not sure. Anyway, the point is that this shut down even before local bitcoins was live. So this was before 2012, right? So early. And there's a very interesting post, which also I think it's really worth going over. And people identified from a very early stage that there are going to be a lot of problems because of the asymmetric nature of Bitcoin and fiat, right? What do I mean by that more specifically? It's the fact that Bitcoin is final, right? After I got a confirmation, with each confirmation, the chance of you taking my money back decreases exponentially. But with fiat, that's not the case, right? And you could have certain problems, and there are certain attacks that people can do there. Let's just keep a bit now, and let's go to a certain point in time. Well, actually, so local Bitcoins, they did their cash thing. People were using it. People, I believe, they were using the escrow to some degree. I'm not 100% sure then. And their business scaled. They always provided a good service and everything, so it only made sense for them to add other payment methods, and most of them were online payment methods, right? So I'm just going to describe right now how does an online payment method go, right? And in this case, we're going to see how it makes a lot of sense to use the escrow, right? And how local Bitcoin just works wonderfully for that. And then we're going to contrast that with how a cash trade goes, and we're going to explain why it doesn't work for that, right? So if you never used local Bitcoins, you go on the homepage, you're gonna see some advertisements there, right? What does that mean? You're gonna see a name. That's the name of a trader that's providing liquidity there. And there's gonna be a certain price that's gonna include also his markup, which is gonna be a premium or a discount, depending how you want to see it, or if it's a buy or a sell. And there's also gonna be some relevant trading information. There's gonna be some details about that specific payment methods or whatever. And there's also gonna be, I guess that's pretty much it, actually. Yeah. So when you open the trade, well, let's say there's a guy there that says he's selling one Bitcoin for, I don't know, $1,000, right? Well, when you're gonna click on that button and you're gonna open a trade with him, the $1,000 worth of Bitcoin that he has in his account that he has access to immediately get transferred to the escrow. So in this moment right now, he has no access to the Bitcoins. I have no access to the Bitcoin, right? Then he will provide some form of payment details, and you will be asked to make the payment. If you don't make the payment, it's perfectly fine. He will prove that, and local Bitcoins will take the Bitcoins from the escrow and give it back to him. If you do, however, make the payment and he doesn't not want to send you the Bitcoins, you will send proof to local Bitcoin that you've made the payment, and they will give you the Bitcoins. And of course, there's the best case scenario, which probably made more sense to start with that. That's a bit pessimistic of me. Everything goes well, and you don't need to involve anyone. He's just gonna confirm that he received the payment, and I just get my Bitcoins. I hope this was clear enough, and I just didn't ramble. But the point is here that because I don't meet the trader and we'll just call the people who provide liquidity the traders, and let's call the other people clients. We're just gonna keep on using this for the whole show. I mean, I think it's pretty clear why that makes a lot of sense, right? Because I don't know this guy. I have no information about him, and until I make the payment, I cannot trust this person, or he cannot trust me, right? So it makes a lot of sense to use the escrow in this scenario. And after the trade is done, you're probably gonna give him feedback, and he's gonna do the same. So that is pretty, that makes a lot of sense, and that helps a lot. And I guess also it's a bit interesting to note here. Well, actually, we should go a bit into detail. There's something very specific. Oh, sorry, go on.
So pretty much like the gist of it is like local Bitcoins is just like the bridge between two people on the internet. Like there's no way to actually establish any kind of trust, because once the fiat is sent, it's sent and then has those downsides of chargebacks, of fraud risk, and so on. And then once the Bitcoin is sent on the other side, like there's nothing you can do about it. And so there's no arbitration mechanism. So they just step in and kind of fill that role. And that's pretty much just the core of like the value of their service.
Local Bitcoins is the Tinder of Bitcoin. What happens after you meet, it's not up to the company.
I think that's really poetic, and that's the first time I ever heard. That's a really good way to say the Tinder of Bitcoin. That makes a lot of sense, actually.
But yeah, that's where it's like the escrow service does serve a purpose if you're just staying on that online side of things to really sort of help you get through the transaction. But when it comes to the in-person experience, the escrow service, that's where it loses its value at, right?
Yeah, I forgot to mention this. Because if you are using local Bitcoins, right? How they make money, first of all, they charge 1% out of the traded volume, but that's from the trader. That's from the person who posts the advertisement, right? That's how they make their money. So you are pretty much paying, as a trader, you're paying pretty much 1% to local Bitcoins to have a place to advertise, which is, you could see it's some form of real estate. You pay for the feedback system, which pretty much what that does, it makes the unknown problem a bit smaller. And you also pay for the escrow. So this would be the three main things why you're paying 1%.
Yeah, and so that's pretty much coming out of the seller of the Bitcoin side on the Bitcoin. So it's kind of like an asymmetric cost between the person selling the Bitcoin and the person buying it.
Of course, and there's also, I think it makes sense to clarify here, the traders are not, if the market price is, I don't know, 1,000 quid, they're gonna charge a bit more, right? So they are making money, and they are being rewarded by the market for providing liquidity there, pretty much.
Yeah, so
they're pretty much market makers, yeah.
So pretty much like that 1% fee that local Bitcoin is charging, like that at the very least, like the premium is always going to have to be at least 1% or more for the traders selling Bitcoin to actually make any kind of profit.
Yeah, I just want to make this quick note here because I think it's really funny because there's two way of calculating 1%, and a lot of people don't see this because the 1% from the trader is treated it's 1% out of the volume, right? And then the other thing is that when you look at the price, it's going to be 1% out of the price. And if you calculate those things, you're going to get a bit different results. And I think that that's really fun to mention. It's just a fun fact. Probably everyone's going
Yeah,
to find
but
it boring, but I think it's funny.
yeah, but the core takeaway though is that fee by local Bitcoin puts a floor on the premium that the trader is going to have to charge. Like their price premium is going to have to at least make up for that 1% they're paying to local Bitcoin.
Oh yeah, that's true. I just found a very quirky math thing, and I thought it was fun to mention. Yeah, yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Yeah, you're 100% right. That.
Okay, so I guess do you want to kind of go into now, I guess the different dynamics when it comes to in-person cash trading and just how the escrow kind of starts to lose its value in that situation?
Sure. The thing is that until 2007, until the half of 2017, right? There were not that many like everything was going well on local Bitcoins, right? Most of the traders there that were trading cash were also trading bank transfers because again, I looked a lot at this and um, you could clearly see there were the same people having advertisements in cash section and online sections. And I when by like roughly around the half of 2017, things started getting a bit weird, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, that's when I started noticing some problems, right? And those problems were people started posting on the forum that people are that the traders are not honoring this price. But I think before we get that and explain why was that, I guess it makes sense to add a bit of context and explain. Well, actually, answer directly your question. So now let's go through a cash trade like we did through a bank transfer trade, right? So you're gonna go on local Bitcoins now, and you, for whatever reason, you decided to use cash. And also, I think it's important to note here that you're not using cash because you're a criminal. That's a very stupid argument. A lot of people why they use cash, especially in the United Kingdom, is because like you could do one trade with someone that has something to do with Bitcoin, and your bank account would get locked. You would have to like go through all the process of getting your money back, right? Which again is nothing illegal. There's nothing wrong. And then even more so, they would close your bank account. And when they close your bank account, that affects your credit score. So you could never take any money from anyone, and you would have bad credit score. So that's the main reason why people use cash, and it's not because they're like illicit activities and whatever. All right. So you have some cash. You decided you wanna go and buy some Bitcoin. You go on the website. You go in the cash section. You're gonna see an advertisement. You're gonna see someone's name, right? You're gonna see a price there and some details about the trade. Now, what's gonna be different here is that the person is gonna have some contact information. Most of the time, it's gonna be a phone number. So you're gonna call the person. You're gonna set a meeting place with him. Um, Meet him. Exchange cash for Bitcoins, and that's what it is. Now, when you're gonna meet this, when you let's go exactly well. So you set them a place to meet. You're meeting the person, and now it gets to the point like, okay, we're gonna trade one Bitcoin for £1,000. Who goes first, right? And it's the same thing that was happening before. Is the same dynamic. Well, the client is gonna go first as the trader has more reputation, right? That's what's gonna happen. And now you're going to be like, well, hang on now. What about the escrow system? Why aren't we using the escrow system? Well, let me tell you why we're not using the escrow system. Because let's say I am trading with Shinobi right now, and we use the escrow system, right? We go through the whole process. He clicks the button. Money's with local Bitcoins right now, right? If everything goes well in the good case, he gives me the money. I click the button. I release the Bitcoin to him. We both walk away. Everything is fine. Now, if something goes wrong, you cannot prove that to local Bitcoins. I mean, how can you prove what happened there? Are you gonna have a camera with you? Well, that's not gonna fly. Like it's literally impossible to prove that. So you can see the escrow system as being a hedge that has a cost of 1%. Now, why would I want to pay a price for a hedge that doesn't help me? And people caught on to this fairly early, because I don't and I know a lot of people, and I talk with a lot of people. No one used to use the escrow service when it comes to cash, because why pay 1%? It's like if I could add a Rick and Morty reference here, it's like slavery with extra steps. It's like it is something similar. It doesn't make, it's just an extra step with no benefit and just with a cost. So yeah, I guess that's what was happening there.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's like, really, it's not only just like a kind of another aspect of this, besides just the escrow not really providing any value, because like I've used local Bitcoin a number of times, and I've never even dealt with the escrow system a single time. But like, also another kind of dynamic of that, before we get into kind of the worst case with the cash and the escrow system, is that personally, I've never even registered an account on local Bitcoins. I've never contacted a trader through the local Bitcoins platform. I've always just gone on, searched through their reputation, and just directly contacted people. So like, not only do you have the escrow providing no benefit here, which also kind of implies local Bitcoins isn't making any money off of it because they can't charge the 1% through the use of the escrow. But I am completely disengaged from the platform. So like, and if anything were to go wrong, although it never has in my case, I don't even have a means of like reacting to that on the platform in a way that looks legitimate. Because if something were to go wrong, I would have to register an account that would be brand new. And from the perspective of the platform, I just started a new account that's never used the platform or engaged in a trade with somebody. And I'm just saying that a trader with a good reputation scammed me. And like, that is also another aspect of this. Like, that would just in no way look like a legitimate complaint. That would look like I'm a sock puppet attempting to attack a competitor trader or something.
That's exactly what I wanted to say without the stuttering and very coherent. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, I guess so. Now we've kind of gone through.
I want to insert. 1 second. I want to insert another observation here. Right, there was something very specific to this cash market. Right. It's very interesting. So if you're a client, right, from the perspective of a client, if you go on the platform and you want to sell Bitcoin, and you want to buy Bitcoin, you're gonna buy it around this average of about, when I use to track the data, around 7%. So you pay around 7% if you want to buy Bitcoins. Now, if you want to sell Bitcoins, right, you get spot price. And that baffled me a lot of times, because it was like, why is this happening? It's not like it's a rule of thumb or something, but somehow this naturally occurs. Of course, I think the most important dynamic at play for this asymmetry has to do with supply and demand to some degree. But I think there's also different risk models to a trade when you're buying versus when you're selling. And let's just go for this thought experiment, right? Let's say you have $1 million right now, right? And let's say you have $1 million in a briefcase and you're walking on the street, versus you have $1 million worth of Bitcoin on a wallet, not a Trezor, by the way, and you're walking on the street, right? I think we can clearly see here it's a few orders of magnitude at least more risky to walk with a cash on the street, right? Now let's look at when you're finishing a cash trade, when you're buying versus when you're selling. So when you are buying the Bitcoins, right, the person that's gonna leave with the cash, that's gonna be the seller, he's gonna make 7%. Now in the other model, when you're selling, the person who's gonna leave with the cash is getting 0%. And as you pointed out, Shinobi, earlier, the trader always has an advantage, right? But this is even more skewed because he is always making more when he's leaving with the cash, right? And I think that has to do with some form of efficient market dynamics, and somehow the market could tell, because most of the traders are not aware of this. It just happens like that, right? It just happens. That's as much as they could get in that direction. So I think it's just interesting how the market really knew that's the more riskier one, right? And decided. I think that was just something interesting to mention.
Also, I think this would make a nice segue into the escrow going wrong with a cash trade, but like there's also a huge asymmetry of risk as far as what the trader is taking versus the client when you're dealing with a large cash trade. Because me as a client, once those bitcoins are sent to me, they're mine when they confirmed. I could literally just show up with an address and not even have a private key on me. So there's no way to rob me or try and take those back. But on the trader's part, you have to walk out of there with a wad of cash. And I very much, or somebody who knows me, could follow you and mug you and take that back. And there really is no way in most cases to protect yourself from that in the way that I can as a client, only bringing a public key with me. So that there's also that huge asymmetry and risk as far as physical safety that a trader's taking, because they're going to have to leave with that cash, and that's a physical thing somebody can just take from you.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I guess we should move to the incident. Well, this happened, I guess. It was 2017, probably in February. I I was always doing these small trades on local bitcoins, but I get this call, and someone wants to do a big amount. It was about 7,000 pounds at a time, and that was a big amount. That was pretty much most of my stash. And for whatever reason, it sounded like a good deal, right? And because I was greedy, just because I was stupid at the end of the day, I said, okay, well, let's go for it. And and nothing seemed off. We decided to meet somewhere in a public place. It was a very nice, crowded restaurant. And this guy tells me um, an hour or so before that his girlfriend is gonna come and meet me instead of him. I didn't make nothing of it. I said, like, okay. I meet with her. We exchange the cash for Bitcoin. Everything. Oh yeah, and then I wanna. This is very interesting. Out of all the trades I've ever done on local bitcoins, this is the only single fucking time that I was asked to use the escrow. All right. This is the only time. The reason being because she's a female, which I was like, you know what, whatever, sure. And after, no, that's exactly how it was. That was her reason, So I sorry.
First red flag though on this transaction.
Oh, there were a lot of red flags. I was just a greedy idiot. Like we can talk about what I did wrong also, and how I could have seen this from miles away, right? But yeah.
Let's go on.
So we exchanged it. Yeah, we exchanged the cash for bitcoins, and then she says, "Babe, you have to give the money." That's how she talked, and I was like, "Well, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna give you the money. The trade is done. You have whatever. I have the bitcoins. Like, I have the money, I have the bitcoin. Move on." And then after a few moments, this guy comes there, which looked kind of off. I realized that at that moment something was going on. They try to hit me. I'm holding the money, right? He's hitting me. I'm trying to dodge him while I'm holding the money. At one point, they managed to take the money from my hand. They run off, and the police comes and whatever. If you want to listen to this, I describe it in more detail. You can go to the Bitcoin Uncensored SoundCloud, and I talk about it there. Anyway, the point is that you see, that was the worst case scenario, right? And what do you do in this situation? And I had a lot of feedback. Like, I think I had some reputation on local bitcoins, right? So what do you do? Well, the first thing, I called the police, and I went to the hospital and whatever. Very interestingly enough, the police was pretty nice. They're very, they didn't act weird about it because it was Bitcoin, and it was even before the big boom and everything. But yeah, afterwards, I'm trying to tell local bitcoins what happened, and they say I'm lying, right? Like, I have a lot of feedback. They're like, "Hey, lot," and they say I'm lying, right? So I'm trying to convince them. I'm trying to send them like documents from the police. I'm trying to tell them they could call the police, right? I'm trying to send them documents from the hospital, right, where I was afterwards, because they said it would be good to get checked out, and they still don't believe me. And I just tell them this: look, how about this? If I'm wrong, right, you should try at least to lock their account or something like that. Because if I'm wrong, you lock their account, you can say you're sorry, and they get their bitcoins back. But if I'm right, I'm getting fucked here, right? So after I said that, I guess this is just pretty reasonable. I thought they did lock their account, and that was the interesting thing was that because they were very stupid, they didn't knew that the transaction was on the local Bitcoin blockchain, not on the real blockchain. So they left the Bitcoins there. And then after this, and after the police, after they realized everything was true, local Bitcoins locked their account and they couldn't get their money out. Right. So this had nothing to do with the escrow. Right. This was just pure luck that they were stupid enough and they didn't understand how Bitcoin works, and that wasn't a real censorship resistant transaction that we did there. Right. So you can clearly see like what. So I ended up paying 1% to local Bitcoins, right? And I'm minus 7 Bitcoins now. Like, how is that okay? How did that help in any way?
Yeah, it didn't. You wound up getting the cash stolen from you as well as the Bitcoin locked up, and they never wound up giving that back to you. So like even in the absolute worst case scenario of you literally getting robbed in the middle of a trade, like that escrow did nothing. It didn't help at all.
I guess I could say like if it wasn't like you just gave it to them on a cell phone and you sent the Bitcoin that way, like they could have ran away with it, where now it's all just tangled up, right?
Yeah, but this is like, that's a very good point, Rick. But this had to do with the fact that we used the local Bitcoin's blockchain versus the real blockchain. Oh, another interesting thing that was happening here, when the fees were going up a lot, right? A lot of traders would still meet and trade. This was going to go even for online trades or anything. They would try to skip the escrow system, but they would, because in local Bitcoins you have this functionality where I can send from my local Bitcoin's address to your local Bitcoin's address, and because it's on the local Bitcoin's blockchain, right? Air quotes, it's instant and free. So that was also a thing that was going on, and you would save on fees, of course, on transaction.
Mm-hmm. But I think the core of the point though, Rick, is like the thieves didn't wind up getting those Bitcoin, but they walked away with the cash that they had. So like they didn't gain anything, but they didn't lose anything either. Whereas Raw, like he lost those Bitcoins, like he never got them back. And so even though it stopped the thief from walking away with both the cash and the Bitcoin, like Raw still got screwed. So like it didn't actually, like the function of an escrow isn't just to screw over a thief, it's to make sure that nobody gets fucked. And it did not do its job.
So is this true? You never got back the Bitcoins from the escrow?
So what's happening now? Local Bitcoins, they didn't get me the Bitcoins yet. No, because they're waiting for some things to finalize, and it is what it is. So I'm minus 7 Bitcoin, which is kind of interesting because I also thought about this like a lot of times. Like if the price cranks up a bit, like that's a big. I mean, even now it's an obscene sum of money, right? That's a big sum of money, So yeah.
What would they give you if everything finalized? The Bitcoins or the value of the, I don't know, the exchange rate? That's better.
Well, they have my Bitcoin. They have the number, the unit of Bitcoins in lock right now. So that's what I would expect to get back. I'd be okay even with the other value. Like after 2 years or something, I'd be okay with anything, right? I would just buy Bitcoin for it. So any value would be it's greater than 0.
Yeah, it's not sitting in your wallet. It doesn't feel like, it just feels like a scammy thing right now. So yeah, they should be able to fix that. I mean, it seems like, what are they waiting on to finalize? I mean, some sort of investigation. It seems like they've been wasting a lot of, or just expending their resources, making sure that they're in a regulatory, clear with wherever they're located.
So what happened exactly? Let me clarify this here because I did clarify it on the BU podcast. The thing is that again, the police was so cooperative. I was so surprised. They were like really nice about it. And again, they didn't knew what this Bitcoin thing was back then, right? And the police officer told me like if local Bitcoins have been incorporated in the UK, this would have been so easy to get done, right? It would have been the most easiest thing in the world because it was in the same jurisdiction and they have specific procedures for these types of things. But because they're in a different country, right? They had to talk with them and had to communicate and yada yada yada. I don't know if it would be good to give very specific details because the case is still investigation is still going on. It's not finalized. But because of that, that's why they have to wait, and this is taking such a long time. So I like again, I don't want to like put down local Bitcoins, right? Because
Yeah.
this is the same as also my same attitude regarding, oh my God, everyone had this reaction. They removed cash. Oh my God, what are the traders gonna do? Well, just try to be in their perspective. If I would be the CEO of that company, I would be doing exactly the same thing. I would have actually removed it even earlier, but that's besides the point. But even in my case, I would have done the same exactly thing. That's the rational, less risky thing to do. So I can't be mad at them for that,
Mm-hmm. But, you want to kind of like wind back a little bit though, and I think we should step back a little bit topically and go a little bit more into like the false advertisements that traders were putting up for cash prices and like how long that's kind of been going on and like the dynamics here, because I think this in particular, especially when you have no kind of escrow service, is just a general problem for any kind of cash for Bitcoin market, because it's just really an area that's ripe for scamming.
Oh, that's very good. And I think what I talked so far, I don't think it's really necessarily that that unique, right? I mean, you could get this information, but what is this right now? I don't think there are that many people pretty much in the space. If you're not a local Bitcoin, I don't know if you have access to this kind of data or what I'm going to talk right now. So this is probably the most interesting part right now. So yeah, let's get back a bit. When I was mentioning that around 2017, pretty much after I got robbed a few months afterwards, this interesting thing started happening, right? People started complaining on the forum that traders are false advertising, right? What does this mean? That means that, I'm gonna say I'm gonna sell one Bitcoin at 1,000 pounds. We meet and I charge you more than that, right? So what was going on there? What was this happening? Well, if you used to go on localbitcoins.com on the homepage, right, when the cash option was still available there, you would have 4 sections, which is buy Bitcoins online, sell Bitcoins online, buy Bitcoins with cash, sell Bitcoins with cash. Each of these sections would have 5 advertisements, and this would be the 5 most cheapest advertisements there, right? So if you would sell the cheapest, you would be seen by more people, as you would rank upper in the list. So that means you would have a higher chance of like selling your Bitcoins. In the online advertisements, if you see you're selling Bitcoin at spot price and I click the button and I open a trade with you, bro, you have to sell it at spot price. You could of course say you don't, but then I'm gonna give you bad feedback, right? Now with the cash thing, as we discussed earlier, there's no feedback. There's nothing going on, and most of the traders who were trading cash, they would get a lot of feedback for trading online. So because of this thing, people realize, well, you know what? I could just say I sell Bitcoin at any price because there's no punishment for bad behavior, right? So this started happening bit by bit, and then at a certain point, like everyone was literally, when I say everyone, I mean every single trader on local Bitcoins in London was false advertising. And you would go there and you would see this incredible things like you could buy Bitcoin as minus 10%. That's incredible, right? So, when I saw this, I got a little bit weirded out by it. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And again, people keep posting there and complaining about it. And you can see like there's a few posts that should also probably be included in the show links where there's like this guy who goes and talks with every single trader there, like literally every single one of them. And all these traders would make up lies and they would lie about their price and everyone was dishonest. Now, let's say you want to be an honest trader there. Well, you're not going to make money because if you don't lie about your price, you're going to rank so low in the page that no one is going to look at you, right? So that's pretty fucked, actually. And when this happened, I realized, like, you know what? I think this is because the incentive model is broken, and this doesn't make sense. And the market pretty much managed to incorporate this information now, right? And this just proves my point. So what I ended up doing, I started logging the traffic on the traffic on local bitcoins for cash, right? Because the local bitcoins offers in their API, so you can get fairly easy. And I had a hunch that was happening everywhere in the world, right? Because I don't think there was something specific to London. This is something that's happening in the whole world. And I tracked about I think there was like around 20 cities or something like that. And from all that data, this was happening almost everywhere in the world. This is very interesting. If there would be a country where there's like high high volume on local bitcoins, so if there's a country that there's a lot of interest in Bitcoin, now if you would pick a big city from that country, one good example of this would be St. Petersburg or Moscow, right? Or Kiev, Ukraine, right? You would see the same thing happening there. People were lying because you would see there's like a lot of like weird prices there, and you could also see that data because you could just pretty much see who are the most dishonest traders, right? Because you could see how they would deviate from the normal behavior there, right? So that was pretty interesting. And I also ended up having this ranking trader, so I knew who were like the most dishonest traders on local Bitcoin, and that was just interesting to look at, and that was interesting data to gather. And that just proved even more that I mean, this wasn't an anecdote. This wasn't something that I was observing from this point where I am right now. This was happening. This was a thing. So now, after I see this thing, I'm just thinking to myself, like, this makes zero fucking sense. Local Bitcoins makes zero money from this thing, right? Because people are not using the escrow. Because of this, people are because they have such a bad incentive model. People are incentivized to do stupid things there, and you are rewarded. You will make more money if you behave badly, right? Why the fuck aren't they're taking this section away, right? Which I don't know why it was, because I've been saying this for more than a year now that this was going to happen, and well, eventually happened for because of regulatory pressure rather than what I would expect. So yeah.
So I have a question for you. I got on localbitcoins in 2013, and from there, the site did not improve anything since 2019. I mean, it's crazy. It's 5 years. Or did you notice improvement, or was this improvement only on places that I never used? So you know what I mean? Did the site improve over the years or not at all?
I remember, yeah, that's a very good question. I remember you mentioning this even in the last digest, I think it was. Yeah, you know what? That's very valid. If you would go back again, I didn't use the website when it first came out, but if you go back in that local Bitcoins post, in that Bitcoin talk post, you can see it looked a bit different, but not that much. But you're right; it's the same Twitter bootstrap thing since forever. And I remember you also saying that you don't like you think they don't care a lot about their product, and maybe that's why they didn't change it. You know what? Actually, I would want to disagree with you, because the market decided that's a good product because their volumes always keeps going up, right? And now you could also argue against me now. Yeah, well, there was no competition and yada yada. But still, I think the people that were using local Bitcoins, I think they're the kind of people that don't like change and that like simplicity. Local Bitcoin did one single thing and it did it fucking good. It was simple and that was just it. And now I think it's really interesting to point out that I think it was in 2015 when Paxful came about, right? So Paxful is pretty much like a local Bitcoin's alternative. They were pretty much identical, right, in terms of functionality and whatnot, but there were these very two key differences. On local Bitcoins, they would only show the price, but they wouldn't show the markup. They wouldn't show how much the person has a discount or a premium, right, a trader. Well, Paxful, for whatever reason, they had this information also included. And if we're on this topic, I guess we should talk a bit about Paxful because it was very interesting. So local bitcoins started out with all the payment methods, right? And had any payment method you could imagine there. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if people weren't trading, I don't know, pantyhose for bitcoins, right? They would have it there as an option. And Paxful, they started this thing out and they became the place for gift cards, right? And that was pretty interesting for me because I was trying to understand who was using these gift cards and why. Turns out they were pretty much was the politically correct term here, sex workers. It turns out there were sex workers. They were pretty much girls that were using Backpage, right? And the timing was so good because when Backpage couldn't process payments for advertisements with credit cards anymore, that's when this thing developed. And also another interesting thing here that happened is that Purse was still around. Purse is a service that allows you to you have some bitcoins, you make a wish list of I don't know, you want to buy a laptop, and someone with gift cards is gonna buy that it's gonna buy that product for you, right? And it's interesting that you had these arbitrage opportunities here where they had this opportunity. Stop distracting me, Shinobi. Stop writing. It's interesting how these arbitrage opportunities arose here between Paxful and Paris, and it's very interesting how these girls would end up paying even around 50% premiums, right? So the inefficiency that they couldn't get access to Bitcoin was exploited by the people who are trading on Paxful, and then that arbitrage between those probably the same people or other people on Purse and on you getting your laptop, which is kind of crazy if you think about that. You have some Bitcoins and you want to buy a fucking laptop, right, through Amazon. And that's happening because some girls wants to put an advertisement somewhere that she wants to, engage in romantic endeavors, right? I think that's incredible. And also, Bitcoin Uncensored will talk a lot about circular economies and whatever, but I think that's just fascinating on itself. And also, I know I derailed a bit, but then also, like, to address what Nopara said, Paxful was always antithetic with Bitcoin, right? Local Bitcoins, no one knows nothing about them. They barely tweet. They barely do anything. Paxful tweets a lot. Ray is out there. If you search for Ray on Twitter, he's probably gonna answer to you. Local Bitcoin started throwing away the payment methods. Paxful tries to add more of them. Local Bitcoin is just a very simple bootstrap design. Paxful tries to be a bit more shiny and whatever, So I think that's also very interesting how these things develop in parallel, but like they're almost like doing the opposite thing. I would say like one of them is like the greater sound, and one of them is the smaller side. It's just like it's just opposite somehow. I hope that long answer made sense though.
It made sense, and there were a lot of things in it. Just one thing I would note that local Bitcoin is anything but simple. It might seem simple to you because you are just so accustomed to it, but I mean, it's even for me, it's so confusing. It has a stupid eBay feel to it that the things are just not on the right place. You know what I mean? That's what I mean by. There are definitely things to improve, just the UX and not functionality. Functionality is something that power users want, but even they don't use. But just like put the buttons in the proper place and like look like something usable. But of course, if you're accustomed to it, over time you'll be able to use it very well. But oh, okay. Tell me this. Did any of your clients have any issues with local Bitcoins? Like you had to help them by they didn't find the things on the website?
I think again, I think that's a very valid point. And you know what? I would like to make a comparison between, I guess, also how Join Market and Wasabi Wallet is, right? It's like it's kind of the same kind of a thing, but still a lot of people use during market and prefer during market because, well, for whatever reason, for them, well, it's pretty clear enough. I don't know what's hard to use, or I don't know why you wouldn't use this. So yeah, but now
It's not a cash cow that developers just taking out money off it and they can fund the developments. So that's the difference, really.
No, I know, but I understand that, and I just wanted to point out like how there's a different user experience and how some people still would prefer that. But yeah, I completely understand the difference, and I don't want to compare them from that perspective. And well, I use both depending on whatever. But to answer your question, I mean, I guess the answer is no, because if you ended up trading with me for local Bitcoins, I mean, if you're a person who couldn't understand how local Bitcoins work, you don't get to the point to contact me, right? So that's why the answer would be no. I wouldn't. I don't know.
All right, so let's again kind of like wind back in a circle a bit here, but it seems like at least with the issue of these false price advertisements and kind of the dynamic that created where most people aren't even registering accounts when they're buying in cash. Like it really I think boils down to like the incentives, as you said, and just how postings are structured. And I think that issue goes well beyond just local Bitcoins. Like that's any kind of platform trying to coordinate a cash market for Bitcoin. Like if you try to preferentially weight listings and raise their visibility in kind of a Google scoring way based on how good of a deal it is for the buyer, then you're really just incentivizing bad behavior. And that seems to me like a core issue with any platform out there where people are trying to coordinate buying Bitcoin in cash. And it's really like how do you fix that problem? Like how do you address that? Because really, like it seems like you are either going to have to weight listings in some way, which is inevitably going to boil down to some kind of distorted incentive like that, or just leave it a completely disorganized mess. And leaving it totally disorganized, like that's a horrible experience for the buyer. Like that's not something they're going to want to engage with unless they have a real serious need, because it's just a horrible user experience. So like how do you think like you can even try going about addressing that problem?
Well, the thing is that again, I've been ever since probably I got into Bitcoin, I've been thinking about these things, and and acknowledge their problems. It's funny how it is about the incentives, right? And then you just have to line the incentives properly. Getting back a bit to the web of trust model, then for whatever reason you are incentivized to always use the feedback system and stay on the platform, right? Probably mostly because you're in neckbeards and they like to use it, or I don't know. I think that's pretty much it. Was an ideological reason that kept them using their kept them using their the web of trust. How would you solve this now? Well, I've talked about this where a lot of people I think I talk, and I got a lot of feedback on this, and I think this makes a lot of sense. You would have to somehow. I don't really want to go in detail over it on there because I might end up trying to build this or something. So yeah, but I could talk abstractly about it. You would have to somehow give a strong incentive for the traders to be on the platform, as in like you would have to add something to them, some form of a DSN thing that they need it and they can't live without it. And if you do that, I believe that there were so now I have my advertisement app, right? It's the same local Bitcoin model, but with this quirk that I think I know it could work. And then you're gonna be like, can we go off local Bitcoins? And I'm gonna be like, well, no, we're not gonna go off local Bitcoins because I want to use this platform, because if I do, I get fucked in some bad way by the market or some other things that happen there.
So just some valuable feature that's going to close that black hole where people are just off in the wilderness where they can't actually use any kind of reporting mechanism or rating mechanism.
Yeah, and I think I know what it is. I just don't want to talk about it. I don't know. Depends on how things are going to evolve. I'm also going to write an article of what I talked to. I wanted to put this down on paper, so if it makes sense, I wouldn't mind like talking about this. But yeah, I think I have this because I mean, this is the interesting thing. Most of the people that build those things, they're not traders. Like I don't think there's anyone that has more insight into this than a trader. And most of the other traders who do this, well, I don't think they spend a lot of time thinking about those things, or they don't try to understand why this is happening. They just do what it is, and it makes money. So yeah, I think you're not gonna see any of those platforms incorporate that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess what do we still have left on the agenda? I think we've really burned through most of it, except just waxing nostalgia.
Yeah, well, you know what, man? I mean, you know why local Bitcoins has a very cultural importance for me? First of all, I'd like to clarify that for me, being a Bitcoiner is very important, right? And it's like it's. I know this gonna sound very stupid and whatever, but I think Bitcoin made somehow economic incentive noble, and not just because it's aligned with everyone's. Like it's not like your greed is not noble because it's aligned with everyone's greed. It's even more than that. It's the most honest form of greed that you can have, right? And even more than that, it's like I don't. It's the most coolest thing in the world. So for me, being a Bitcoin, I think I think a lot of pride in that, and I define it in my own way. And also, the first time when I heard about Bitcoin, right, there was literally no one to talk to. Like I couldn't find no person to talk to. That's how it was back then, right? And then I find this website, Local Bitcoins. I meet this guy, and that was the first time in my life when I wasn't the only crazy person, right? And I met a lot of people for Local Bitcoins, and that understood and saw and perceived reality in the same way I do it. So for me, that has also a bit of an emotional thing. And overall, after also having all these problems, and also local Bitcoin has like everyone complains the support is a bit slow and whatever. Overall, it was a good experience, and overall, they were a very important player in this thing. I mean, they help. I don't think there's anyone else. Probably the most long-standing business in Bitcoin that I can think of, and I think I would say they're one of the most important. Like they help the space more than anyone else. And that's not if there's one thing that you want to point out at that how this had made Bitcoin what it is, I think it should be local Bitcoins, and they should get credit for that.
Yeah, I mean, when I bought my first Bitcoins, like the whole experience just blew my mind. Like I was looking at Mount Gox, and then just the whole wire transfer, like the week wait to Japan, I was just like, fuck that. And then I found local Bitcoins. And it's like when I started scrolling through the cash market and saw people's phone numbers on there, like it blew my mind. And like I was able to literally just get a burner phone, call some person's phone number, drive halfway across the city and meet them at a Starbucks and just hand them cash. And they sent the Bitcoin to a wallet I had on an old Android tablet. And I sat there and I waited for it to confirm. I put it in airplane mode, and I just went home. And it blew my mind, like going from like one extreme, like the first place I could find to buy Bitcoin, like I have to go get a wire transfer set up with my name attached to it, wire money all the way across the world. That's going to take 7 days to clear, and go on this weird platform that's going to know my identity now, never having used any kind of financial infrastructure like that. And like my interaction with the bank was going up to a teller and refusing to use any kind of website access. And then to just go from like that, really wanting to finally get my hands on Bitcoin, to I can call somebody anonymously on a phone without even registering an account on this site, and just hand them cash without giving them my name. and get this digital magic money that I can send anywhere around the world without any kind of ID structure built into it. And it blew my fucking mind. And like at that point, like I left that tablet in airplane mode for like 3 months before I really went through the whole protocol stack and like figured out how to like air gap a machine and generate keys offline and move them somewhere safer. And it's just like that whole like 3-month experience of just that like Twilight Zone getting into it this way and then figuring the whole stack out and how to manage those keys safely. It was just crazy. It is like the polar opposite of every interaction with money I've ever had in my life.
Oh yeah, that brings a lot of memory, exactly. And when you have that learning curve and everything that's happening, and your mind is just blown. And again, local Bitcoins did that. I also want to add 2 things here regarding the no ID thing. Well, there is one way of doing this. I mean, I think regulatory compliance is very important. And if you're going to be a trader and you're going to build a business on top of this, you should try to be as regulatory compliant as you can. I try to be, at least, right? So if you're going to buy Bitcoins, for me, this whole non-ID thing isn't going to fly. At least it's like really small amounts, like really, really small amounts. So there's that. And also, I would also want to add that after this happened, and they eliminated the cash payment method, Paxful. I think it's also worth mentioning Paxful because I talk too much about local Bitcoins. They now added geolocation to the cash options, which before wasn't available. So I expect a lot of people are probably going to try to fleet there, and they're just going to organically move on Paxful. And again, the difference is that with Paxful, you can have a conversation. That's the thing. Like I met the guys. I met them even face to face, and I talked with them a few times. So the difference is that with Paxful, I think they would be more open to to approaching this in the smart way. But yeah, I expect probably most of the people are gonna go there, even though there are a lot of like wannabe alternatives trying to take this market right now. But I don't think that's gonna work.
I just logged into my local Bitcoins and actually found $50 there. I didn't even know. And it doesn't send to batch 32 addresses.
You were
See,
completely
they don't
wrecked for
improve it.
me.
Sorry, what was that?
They can't send to Wasabi because they don't improve it. I mean, there is a very good sign. If a business cannot send to batch 32 addresses after, I don't know, 2 years since it's out, and it has like literally 5 minutes of uncontroversial implementation, if it still cannot send to that type of addresses, it has something not in over there. You know what I mean? Yeah, sorry for hijacking the topic.
You were pretty
You know what?
laggy for like that. Yeah, it's like I didn't catch the first half of that Nopara. You were like completely broken up.
Do you want to go over what you said again, Nopara? Because I think it makes sense to talk about it also.
Yeah, so I logged into my local Bitcoin accounts for, I don't know, years probably, and I just found $50 there. So, but sorry, I'm just sick. But 32 addresses, and I keep saying that one of the very good signs.
Did you say you found $50 on your local Bitcoin account, Nopara? Because like you're breaking up real hard right now.
Well,
I think he's complaining about the fact he can't send to batch 32 addresses from local Bitcoins. I think that's what he's trying to say right now. Is that correct?
Okay.
Sending the back 32 should be like a base standard, I think.
Both.
So yeah, it's just like another one of those things where it's like, I guess just change, not changing.
But anyway, go ahead. I don't know why I'm breaking up.
Well, you know what? I encountered this like, oh, I also like to rant about wallets so much. I like to like I've tried pretty much every wallet you can imagine, like every single wallet, and I like to rant about it. And I also have this strong ideology that when something comes out, I want to use it, right? Like when Segwit came out, I just want to use Segwit addresses, man. I want to save on those fees, you know. But regarding local bitcoins, I mean, when it came, they're pretty Bitcoiners, right? They're pretty Bitcoin oriented, right? They're like, and they're like OG people and whatever. So I think if there would be any service trying to implement BIS32, that would probably be the first. But in all honesty, I can't think of any service that uses Bitfruit right now. I know the first ones were Electrum, which I was a bit frustrated because I wanted to have an option where, like in Samurai Wallet, probably should have mentioned Samurai Wallet when the par is around. But in Samurai Wallet, like you have the option of you having a one address, a free address, and a Bitfruit address, right? So but I expect like there's gonna be take a lot of time until services like local bitcoins are gonna, you know, understand bitch32 addresses or something, or even send to them. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I think at this point, even Coinbase supports sending to Bech32. So I kind of, that's not an excuse.
Well, that's
Okay,
what
then forget what I said. That's stupid what I said.
More strategies when an can you guys hear me well now?
Yeah.
I think a very common strategy when an exchange has problems, like internal problems, like insolvency problems, then they really don't want to implement Batch32, sending to Batch32, because that's just one step the user has to take to so they don't have to pay that out. You know what I mean? I think it's just let's not make it easy to take their money out of my platform.
You know, I don't. Again, I kind of. I wouldn't want people to think that I'm defending local bitcoins by no means, because again, I still want my fucking 7 bitcoins back, and I didn't got them. And I'm not defending them, but you know what I think is happening with them specifically? I think they have this weird machine that works to some degree, that makes quite a lot of money, and for them to experience downtime and stop it, I think that's just too much of a, like, you know, whatever. I think again, like this I think this is probably their core values, even though they probably wouldn't admit it. If it's not broken, don't fucking fix it. I think that should be their motto pretty much, right? Because that's how, you know, they've been doing business. And again, it's a good service.
Oh yeah, that sounds like the crux of it is like they're just saying like let's not change anything, but for sure at this time in Bitcoin advancement and development, it's like if you want to make your platform more efficient for your users, you could do that. So yeah, I kind of get where Nopar is saying. It's like this Bech32 thing should be a base layer of saying like, or just a standard where it's like, okay, these people are taking their development seriously, where if they fall this far out of sync, it's like, well, maybe they just, you know, yeah, maybe it's not broke.
Mm-hmm.
So
Booger's guy was saying in the chat that he agrees with you. They are just milking it to the max. And I agree with that too. And that's basically what you said. I just don't think that's a nice thing to do, you know?
No, I agree with you. Like, look, I also want to make it clear here. Like, you know, out of all the wallets I ever use, like Wasabi is the only wallet I don't even want to close it. I just want it to be on my desktop because it looks so nice and it feels so nice, right? And that says a lot about everything when you're going to get such a good experience, you know. So local Bitcoin's obviously on the opposite side of the spectrum of that, and yeah, that you can draw some conclusions for that. So yeah.
So you had something you wanted to
Thank
say,
you.
Uni?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to talk about because obviously, you know, in the last year or so, local Bitcoins has implemented KYC, which is, you know, I mean, local Bitcoins has always been that place where people recommend you go if you don't, or if you didn't want to, you know, have KYC imposed on you, those policies. And now that's not really an option anymore. So, and as a person, like, I've never used local Bitcoins before, but I also thought of it as like a place that I could go if the other options didn't work. So now basically local Bitcoins has become another service for me that, unless I'm really desperate, I will probably never use it as long as it has KYC, because I try really hard to use services that don't collect my personal data, not necessarily because, there's anything wrong with me in terms of my ability to use it, but I want to take a stance and say, there are so many people in the world who wouldn't even have the option to use it because they live in the wrong country, or that, like, even if they had identity documents, they would be blocked from using the service, or they don't have identity documents, which means they don't have the option. So I always want to, if I'm going to use a service and I'm going to recommend it to people, I try to recommend services that anyone anywhere could use. And, their place of birth or whatever doesn't restrict them from doing that. So do you feel like local Bitcoins adding KYC is going to have a big effect on, the people who have been using it for a long time? Like, did you see a lot of people leave, or did you see a drop in traffic in terms of, people using it to make trades or anything like that?
Great, that's a very good question. I also want to clarify that even though I do talk a lot about KYC and whatever, and I'm always trying to see the things from a business perspective, because that's that's pretty much my point of view here. I am also pretty ideologically aligned with being able to share as little information as you could. Then now to address your point directly, I think that's a common misconception, as in local Bitcoin is the place where you go to not do KYC, because most of the traffic that goes on there is bank transfers, right? And when you go to trade with a bank, this is also another efficient market argument. I always get so excited about these things, such a BU fanboy. The thing is that the traders on local Bit, so if you're going to use bank transfer, and that's the most used one, right? If you're going to go buy Bitcoins through a bank transfer, the traders are going to ask you for a picture of your ID, a picture of your bank card that has to match the same bank account number that you're sending the money from, and a selfie of you holding your ID and a piece of paper that says, "I will not charge back." So local Bitcoins, if you're not using cash, and that goes only for small amounts, right? Because after a certain amount, depending on the KYC procedures in the specific countries, but most of them in the Western world need to go on a risk approach basis. You will have to you'll have to like dox your identity to the trader anyway, right? So that's not the case. And to answer the second part of the question, that the volume went down, no, it has not. There's this website called coin.dance, and they pretty much log the volume of local Bitcoins, Paxful, and BISC. And as far as I could tell, it had no influence. The volume just looks fine. I also have some reason to doubt how they calculate a volume, because also another thing that I don't like, I didn't like really a lot about local Bitcoins. There's not a lot of documentation, and their API is really not documented. And you're just like, at least for me, it was hard to know what was happening there and whatever. So yeah, I hope that answered the question though.
Yeah, so you're saying that, like, even though local Bitcoins itself as an organization didn't have KYC policies implemented, the traders were already imposing that on themselves and their, whoever they're trading with individually to protect themselves.
Oh yeah, and because this is kind of, I think we can also make I hope I'm not stretching this, but I think we can make a Lightning Network kind of analogy here. It's like so if I trade with you right now, right? You have to send me a selfie of your ID and you saying you will not charge back, right? And I feel this is kind of like those things on Lightning where, like, if the worst case scenario happens, I can publish this, right? If you go to the bank and you want to charge back, I'll be like, no, look, I have this. She signed this, right? She signed this thing where she says she's not going to charge back, so I get to keep the money. And somehow traders just realized that's the proper way to do it, and that's what I was going to say. An efficient market argument, like the market decided that's the efficient way to trade this. So regulation, it went towards this regulatory framework somehow.
And do you think that's where like the volume didn't get affected was because a lot of the local Bitcoin traders have sort of like got these, clients already lined up?
Well, the reason why the volume didn't get affected. So again, if you go on coin.dance, that's a reference to check the Bitcoin. As I talked also with coin.dance in the past, I asked them, and they said they're using the local Bitcoins API. Now, when you're using the local Bitcoins API, as far as I understand, again, I might be wrong of this, they're spitting out this volume, and this volume, as far as I understand, is just trades that went through the platform. Like I open a trade, Rick opens a trade with me right now, and when we click finish, that's logged as volume. So the cash volume wouldn't have been there anyway. You wouldn't have seen it because it doesn't go through the platform, right? So that's why I don't. Again, you can go there and check. There's no decline in volume. The volume is looking fine.
Yeah, that would, I mean, as a person who I don't even take selfies for personal reasons to share with friends or anything, and I even made a point when I was getting a passport to not, because the person that I was talking to at the embassy was saying that I should send it over email, and I was like, no, you're insane. I'm not sending my ID over email. And so I said, no, only bring it in person. So I'm the kind of person that I would under no circumstance give a selfie. Because that would kind of ruin my my whole strategy of not having any pictures of me on the internet for privacy reasons. So I mean, I would be willing to show it in person if that was really of concern to them. But then again, I probably wouldn't be doing a bank transfer where they would have to worry about whether I would do a chargeback. I would just do it with cash. So yeah, I think that's one of the unfortunate side effects, that if you're interfacing with any part of the traditional financial system, even if they're not imposing, KYC policies on you themselves, people are going to end up using that anyway because, the traditional financial system isn't censorship resistant. It's not, you can't protect yourself. And so you have to use some of the same mechanisms, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, it's not the easiest thing in the world to get your hands on Bitcoin completely anonymously, and especially if we look at a lot of the systemic problems with cash trades at all that Raw went into. It's kind of an open question as to whether those types of cash markets in general are going to survive the next 5 or 10 years, because it's it's regulatory reasons. Local Bitcoin removed the cash markets, but a lot of the problems that they were dealing with regards to them probably had some influence on that. And that's not something you can just magic away on other platforms. So there either needs to be a solution to those, or they're probably not going to stick around in the long term.
Well, sounds like Raw's got the solution for us. We just got to wait for him to build it.
Yeah, I mean, I've also been thinking about that for a long time, but also my perspective on accumulating value is trying to use as less resources as you can and as fast as you can, because this is a very interesting thing when you're trying. I think it's pretty obvious for probably at least anyone that's listening to this show, the name of the game is to accumulate as many Bitcoins as you can. So then it gets to the point I'd rather do something that I accumulate Bitcoin now, because this is going to go so much up in value, and I can't compete with how much this is going to go up in value. So I'd rather just do something now that that requires me use as little resources as I can, because I'm going to have such a high opportunity cost in the future, right? So I don't know if I'm going to build that soon, or I don't know what's going to happen, but I would love to. I think I have the solution, and I think it's just interesting how I like to think that it works, just from a geeky perspective, at least.
All right, man. Well, once you got enough BTC, let's line that up.
Mhm. So I guess, does anybody have any more questions or topics they want to broach with Raw? Because I think we've pretty much gone over most of the meat of everything we wanted to.
Yeah, I think that was about everything.
All right. Well, I guess, Raw, do you have any last comments you want to make before we wrap it up?
I mean, thanks for having me on the show. I told you I watch it every morning, and I just enjoy the show a lot, and it's probably the best show right now that you could watch to get yourself informed and learn a lot of things. And I learned a lot of things from you guys. So yeah, just thanks for having me on the show. It's really cool. And I hope I didn't stutter too much, and I think I was coherent as much as I could be.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you coming on, man. Like, been in the mumble, talk educating us on this subject for a long time, and it's kind of come to a head. So it's good to have you on to discuss it. And those listening, your Twitter link is in the description below if you want to reach out.
Be prepared for lots of trolling, folks, just like me. But on that note, I guess that wraps it up for the day. We'll be back for the season finale on Wednesday, and hopefully we're going to try to squeeze out one more special edition before we go on hiatus for 2 weeks. So see you guys Wednesday.
Later, everyone.
Bye.
Check yourself
Bye.
before you wreck yourself.